thinking about getting my hair cut shorter. What do you think?
When we first started doing the show, you had bicked it for your mom. Maybe go back to being a baldy.
I see those photos and I don't hate them.
You didn't look bad.
There was a moment where I kind of had like the Cisco like length. Like I just had like enough gray hair and it looked like Cisco because he used to like spray paint his head gray. And I'm like, not terrible.
It wasn't.
With the gold chain, it worked better.
I'm thinking about
maximum Hispanic.
I'm thinking about buying a brush. I've never had a brush before, but here's what I've noticed. When I wear a cowboy hat.
That Jen just gave Heaton audio listeners was like as if an alien had just revealed himself.
All right, hold on. This is my logic, tenuous though it is. My logic is this. I like my hair having texture and body to it. And I found that as a kid, if I combed it, it would get all slick back. And I have a giant John Lithgow forehead. So it makes me look like I'm bald. I don't like doing that, right? So I like it being kind of messy, right? But here recently, when I wear a cowboy hat or a powdered wig, because I had to wear some for some sketches that we're doing, when I would take it off, I'd be like, my hair looks significantly better. And then I just kind of run my hands through it and be like, this is a major improvement. So I don't know why a hat works as well as a brush, but it seems to.
I mean, hat head's generally not a thing that does that. So I guess you're just a lucky man.
Maybe it's this. Maybe it's just tamping down the extraneous ones. Like, you know how in Adobe Audition, you can like remove the peaks?
Yes.
Maybe it's removing the peaks. And then when I run my hair through it, it maintains the texture.
You know what? I think you just need to wear the powdered wig full time.
I look pretty good at a powdered wig. I look pretty good at it. And hold on now, because we did this sketch that we're going to do for a reason. They wanted it's the 250th anniversary, the semi-Sasquatch-tennial or whatever it's called. And they were like, Heaton, would you do a video in a powdered wig? And I was like, I was fucking born to do this. Not only do I have the powdered wig.
I knew he'd have it.
He is now going to a corner of his room.
I also got this. This is just like a random cutaway in it. Can you see me?
Yeah, this is the traditional Klingon weapon, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a batleth.
There we go.
I incorporated it into the video as just a funny cutaway, but I'm going to put it on my wall. It's going to be a wall decoration. Also, I don't know if you've ever held a batleth before. Really not very easy to wield. Like, it looks gnarly. I feel like it would have some deterrence built into it, but if you were actually fighting with it, it'd be very difficult.
That's the kind of pussy shit a human would say.
Yeah. I get that a lot.
Klingons, strong Klingon arms. They have no problem wielding the batleth.
I can tell you, though, that if I walked into a dude's apartment for the first time and I saw that thing, I would run away.
Well, but it's going to be, okay, I'm redoing my office, right? So this wall behind me, I had initially planned to get one of those kind of art TV things where it looks like a painting, but you can change it whenever you want. And I thought maybe it'd be a background. And I'm like, that's actually kind of distracting. So I'm framing a bunch of signed pictures, like I got the one of me and Shatner framed, and then I even had a little thing put at the bottom of "You're Very Funny, William Shatner 2017." So I'm going to put up stuff behind me. It will be one of many mementos on the back wall behind me, which will not be readily available to female visitors when they come into the house.
So you're going to show them that you've met celebrities and that you might be a psychotic murderer.
I'm not going to take them into my. They're not coming into the office unless they're coming on the show, or unless they wander in after breakfast. By which time it's fine.
Well, having a secret room in your apartment is even creepier. So
it's not a secret room; it's his office.
It's just my office. Like, when you go to somebody's house, do you really want to go to their office first thing?
Sometimes, I mean, if I'm being shown around to see where the guy I'm
it
seeing lives.
does. Like, it is going to factor in on the tour. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're trying to woo a lady, like they're not like, you can't go on a tour and then just be like, and we can't go there. Like you can't. No,
that's where I keep my weapon.
Honestly,
that could easily chop your head off.
I didn't even think about this till Jen brought it up, but I think it's still a good idea for two reasons. The batleth does two things. One, it gives ladies kind of a heads up that I'm a little bit eccentric, and I feel like I ought to do that. I feel like there should be a couple things. But then
You
beyond
think that's going to be the tip off?
You think that's the first?
That's going to be
sign?
when they're going to figure it
Well,
out?
I mean,
No,
if they're
yeah.
You think we need the weapon to know?
if they're just, it's a Star Trek prop. But also, Jen, there's a side chance that
Ladies don't know that. I just see weapon.
you say
just
that, but
think
I feel like there's a non-zero chance that a gal that I would bring home would go, "Is that a batleth? I'm ovulating." Like I could see that happening.
I don't think that's going to ever happen.
I want to remind the listener that there is one single member of our panel. And it may well be based on assumptions like that.
You know, all right, I'm keeping the batleth. I'm sorry. I'm keeping the batleth.
You
Keep
can
the
keep
batleth,
it.
but warn people that you have a weird, very sharp, very large weapon that you keep for reasons.
I would not put it in a prime display spot. It is a cool thing to have. Maybe when you open a closet, you see a gigantic batleth, and so that way you're able to demonstrate it for people that really want
I
to
think
see
that's
it, but
more
you're not
I think that's
obligated.
That
more
is
disturbing.
way worse.
If the
Yes.
gal,
on
the
the
gal
wall,
opens
way
the closet
better.
and discovers my batleth that I have
Yeah.
hidden, I think that's far worse.
So much worse. Like at least
Yeah.
in the office, you can be like, "Oh, here's a story behind this. By the way, this is a batleth," because of course you have no fucking idea what this is. So it's like on the wall, you're at least not hiding the fact that you're maybe going to cut our heads off. Like it's
Again, it's
safer
very
knowing
unwieldy. It would
in
be
advance.
difficult to decapitate someone with it.
Not if
It
they're
is a
asleep.
Klingon thing, right?
Yeah.
Is it? Or is
Yeah, it's
am
a
I
Klingon
mixing
thing,
up?
yeah. It's just Klingon,
yeah,
yeah.
It wasn't what Spock was fighting with during Pon Farr.
No, that's a Vulcan instrument that I don't remember the name of that has like a weighted thing on one end and a hook on the
Gotcha.
other.
Yeah.
I'm not creating a weapon collection. This is just a neat little Star Trek memento.
I just wanted to make sure that I was still in right with the Trekkies when I make my mention of it, and I say that to say this: the first year I ever went to Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia, which we will be back at this year. It's very exciting. We're going to bring Bella, but the first night I was there, I was talking to somebody that was like a hardcore, had been there a bunch of times. And it's a gigantic fan convention for science fiction, fantasy, all sorts of stuff. And he's like, "This is your first time?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm going to give you some advice. Don't party with Klingons." And I'm like, "What do you mean don't party with Klingons?" And he's like, "The people that dress like Klingons that come out here, just if you're partying earlier in the day, just make sure you Irish goodbye before it gets too late." And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "This is real to them." Like they want to get very drunk and violent in the way that they would imagine Klingons get drunk and violent in Star Trek. And that is just a thing that happens.
Counterpoint. Multiple people sent me a video of what I assume is San Diego Comic-Con, but I don't know where it was, of a lady in a blonde wig and Klingon outfit who was singing "Let It Go" from Frozen while wielding a batleth and singing it in Klingon. And I was like, wife? Like, I don't know. Wait, hold on. I got another funny Blade story though that might explain some of the backdrop to this.
Okay.
I went to Boise State when I was in high school. It's way out in Miami, Oklahoma. So it's 4 hours from where I lived. And on the way back, my friend and I happened to drive by a military surplus store. We went in, we're, 17, and we bought machetes just because we thought it was funny. And so when I got home, rung the doorbell, I'd been gone for a week. Dad opens the door, and I pull out the machete and go, "Dad, look what I got." Swing. And Dad looks at it and goes, "It's not a great machete. Come here." And he takes me to the bedroom. He lifts open the mattress and pulls out a much larger, heavier, better machete. And I was like, "Have you had this under your bed the entire, like all those times I was a little kid and I was worried about burglars? You had a machete and you didn't bring that up? When did you get it?" And he thought about it and he goes, "Let me think. Well, it was a wedding present from your grandpa. So it would have been..." Like, so apparently, yeah, Grandpa Heaton just gave my dad a machete as a wedding present.
Well, I mean, it does explain why you like this. I can't remember the name of it.
Batleth.
Batleth.
And I also have a machete in my camper, but that's in case of bears.
Yeah. Well, now I know what I'm going to get Bella's husband for her wedding. Just a big old Oklahoma machete.
Yeah.
We had a lot of emails about the halftime show. I don't know if we want to go through any of them, except to say that 10 people independently, in case you want to know what our demographic is, 10 people independently said Weird Al Yankovic should have a halftime show.
Oh my God.
In case you want to know who our listeners are.
That would be great.
They did not coordinate. Far as I know, they didn't coordinate. They just wrote in independently saying, hey, I've got a great idea. Weird Al Yankovic.
I would dig that one.
First musical concert I ever went to was Weird Al Yankovic.
That checks out.
Yeah.
Are you going to read the emails? Because there is one that I want to respond to.
Which one do you want to respond to?
The one that like basically accuses me of making fun of country music, which is not what I was doing.
You were making fun of country music.
No, I wasn't.
Libs try not to demean rural America challenge impossible, writes. I think Turning Point was probably hoping to take advantage of Super Bowl halftime culture war desires and the current political divisions to get exactly the reaction that Jen gave. Jon Stewart and others tend to speak who tend to speak more from the left side of the spectrum also had that reaction and chose to make fun of the country singer. Unfortunately, that plays into the same feelings that many in rural America have, in which they feel looked down on by left-leaning voices and politicians. When Hillary made her deplorables comment, it catapulted support for Trump, and I think helped him get elected.
Okay. I want to make this clear because clearly I didn't the first time. I'm not making fun of country music. I live in Texas. I like country music. I probably know more songs than both of you two combined. What I was making fun of was that this country music, please. We've talked about this in karaoke, that I do more country music and you guys were surprised by it.
Bullshit.
That was also like 5 years ago.
Well, yeah, because Justin got rid of the karaoke room because he had a baby. How dare
Not
you?
5 years ago. And
No,
also,
'cause
you guys have been
feels like 5
gallivanting
years
around
ago.
the globe. It's not like you've been sitting here reading the karaoke.
I got into
We
country
left
music
because you
when
got
I-
rid of our karaoke room.
Yeah,
This is all
that's
your
it.
fault.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Anyway,
Sorry, Queen of Country, Jen Briney. Please explain,
Yeah.
Tammy Wynette.
what I was making fun of was the fact that Turning Point USA thought that they were going to put on a better Super Bowl halftime show. Like, this was all about a Super Bowl halftime show. They were so offended by Bad Bunny that they were going to do a better one. And they decided that having a guy whining with a slow, boring song was going to be better than Bad Bunny. Like, if Lady Gaga got up and sang some weepy ballad, I would make just as much fun of her. But she knows to read the room. If you're doing a Super Bowl halftime show, it is dancing, it is high energy. It's the Super Bowl halftime show. And so to have that guy, I don't care what the fuck you're singing, but if you're like whining with your guitar and you're the only thing up there, sorry, shitty Super Bowl halftime show. Bad Bunny wins that competition. That was my critique. I wasn't making fun of country music, although like those lines were a little, it was just so whiny. Like, it was such a whiny performance. So that's what I was making fun of. It wasn't like,
You just hate that country artist, not all country music.
I don't hate that dude. I think his song is probably kind of funny. Like, I don't care. I don't hate anything about him. I don't know who he is.
He was a dunk target by the left, though, right?
I am not speaking for the left. For me, this was a bad Super Bowl halftime show that was an inappropriate performance because it was boring as shit. That was my critique
Did
of
you
it.
watch it?
Yes, I watched it online after. I watched at least that part because I thought it was ridiculous.
I know that went viral.
Yes, why did it go viral? Because it was boring and stupid and not appropriate for a Super Bowl halftime show.
left-leaning people like to dunk on the rubes. That's why. It's a very, very profitable thing to do.
Or, you know what? It wasn't the left that started this. It was
it's city dwellers. City dwellers like to dunk on the rurals. This has been like, is this a gas leak? Like, this hasn't been a part of culture for fucking ever?
If you're not going to let me finish a sentence, I'm not going to try.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. It was not the people making fun of the country dude that started this. The NFL chose Bad Bunny, and it was them that had the hissy fit. And so if they have a ridiculous show that they think is going to be better than Bad Bunny, and we watch it and we see that, I think we're allowed to make fun of it. This wasn't like that guy was picked as a Super Bowl halftime show and we decided to like be mean about it. They're the ones who said this would be better. I think they failed. It doesn't really have to do with like being mean to red staters.
Jen, as the head of We're Not Wrong's division of former ranch hands, I absolve you and acknowledge
Thank you.
that you were making fun of a specific artistic work. Now, not talking about you, there are two things that leap to my mind when it comes to this phenomenon, because it is a real thing. There's a particular type of person in, like, I met a lot of them in New York City who, more than anything in the world, hate white people with funny accents. They're also white people, by the way. It's white people that live on the Eastern Seaboard. Not all of them, but there's a clutch of them that hate them. Like the New York Times gets in trouble for this, or used to, where it got out that when they needed to go get a quote from somebody in Appalachia, they would internally call it a Cletus hunt, like the slack-jawed yokel from The Simpsons. So like it is a thing. People are very tender about it. However, I also want to point out, and I think that's real, by the way. Like there's a lot of regional rivalry too. Like I was, we're getting into a lot of heat and stuff this episode. I went to improv camp when I was living in New York City, and I was on the bus and I was talking about we were talking about deaf people and about deaf culture. And I thought it was really interesting that deaf accents occur regionally. So if you speak sign language, you can tell if you're from the South or you're from Kentucky or whatever. And somebody unbidden behind me went, "Do people from the South just sign all fucking stupid?" And I was like, what? So like that's a thing. However, I want to flip it a little bit because that's real and I feel it. And I being from Oklahoma, despite the powdered wig and batleth, I have a lot of defensiveness there. On the flip side though, I got to say, like, when you get to the political level, I think that the Democrats typically don't want to piss off the rural people and try really hard not to do it. Meanwhile, Republican politicians will absolutely 1,000% constantly shit on cities as horrible, horrible places that are crime-ridden and full of iniquity. Like the butthurt thing really only goes one direction, and it's real, but the other way it doesn't fly for some reason.
Well, no, because it's a different vibe. The rap that the city-dwelling liberals get is that there is a snide looking down upon that is reacted to by the red staters or the rural community, and the rural community therefore then probably performatively, screams and yells about how much they love small towns, and they could never imagine living in a big city with all of the attendant things that come along with living in a big city. I don't think this is really even about politics. This is probably as old as the concept of cities that people have found.
It's through the Bible. Yeah. Like literally, I mean, like it's interesting. You always have different dynamics, right? So people that live in urban environments are typically more okay with dynamism. Makes sense. If you're living in an urban environment and you're dealing with an economy in which you're doing a lot of commerce and you're doing a lot of trade, innovation is good, change happens, and it's something that generally can be in favor, right? If you're in a rural area and you're agricultural, you don't want change. You want things to be predictable because you're growing crops. You want things to be stable and predictable, and that goes way far back. I mean, in the Bible, in ancient Greece, the dynamic was city dwellers viewed rural people as yokels. It goes all the way back. Meanwhile, rural people view the city dwellers as slick and licentious. And that goes way back. And something interesting that brings us all together, by the way, is that country music became a global phenomenon coinciding with the global population becoming urban. So I don't remember exactly when this happened. It's about 2001, 2002. The global population, more people are living in cities than living in rural areas for the first time in history, and it's only going further. And at that same time, you start seeing country music proliferate in like Kenya. In Japan, there's Charlie Nakatani.
Japan is huge, and that happened in like the 80s. Country music boom.
And I know what you're going to fucking say, Justin. You're going to say Charlie Nakatani came into his own in Japan in the 1980s. Right. But Japan reached full urban status at that time, coinciding with Charlie Nakatani. And part of the appeal of country music is when you listen to a lot of the lyrics, it's like, I remember growing up on the farm. Life was simpler. I knew everybody. Now I'm in the city and I'm nostalgic for the pastoral life. And like that is now a global motif.
Which is totally fine. It's a genre of music that That's good. It just doesn't belong in the Super Bowl halftime show.
Well, I mean,
in the way that they did it.
It's an alternative. And that's, all right, let's read this one. I miss the good old days when alternative halftime shows were on other channels running one-off specials or pilots, like MTV's first Celebrity Deathmatch. Maybe more online media should do counter-programming to the halftime show, like the Darknet Diaries halftime show featuring Int80, YT Cracker, and MC Frontalot. Look, whatever, obviously, Turning Point very successfully marketed this as something that was a culture war thing, which got a lot of people talking about it and gave a lot of YouTube subscriptions to Turning Point. They have, as they often do, found a way to turn outrage into an audience. And by having people define whether or not they're playing shirts or skins, they can bring more people to their cause. Trolls. The idea that country music would do a halftime show in comparison to popular music is, I think, fine. If CMT did it back in the 90s. In fact, I think it is kind of odd that, considering the demographic of the NFL, that there hasn't been a country music halftime show, I think, really since the 80s. Like that Garth Brooks never did it or anything like that. Like real kind of crossover country stars have not done the halftime show. So the idea, but then again, Turning Points wasn't all country. It was Kid Rock was their headliner that predominantly did the stuff. It was
MAGA. It was political. It was a political halftime show.
I'm not saying it wasn't political. I'm saying I'm saying genre of music. Yeah. But it was an alternative. Yeah, it was an alternative to a thing. And so that's what that was. Since we read one that was mean to Jen, it is worthwhile to say that most of them were mean toward me. It's Numbers writes, Justin. Well, because I don't know. I want to be representative of what people thought and not have people just think that they were making fun of you. Most of them were making fun of me. It's Numbers writes, Justin can't seem to get that cultural division is apolitical. Jen seemed to fail to convince Justin that politics wasn't the point of Rock Nation taking over the halftime show. It's both generational and cultural division. And the NFL wants its product to expand beyond the pre-existing audience market and into other countries and segments of the American market. The audience that would be hyper-served by having Green Day perform in the halftime show, nostalgia for the 90s and 2000s, and abandoning the possible audience that wasn't alive before Green Day was on Broadway with their musical American Idiot. Why chase after an audience that isn't even watching because of the halftime show and drawn to the game? New consumers need the new and hot acts to be attracted to the game. Bad Bunny is the obvious answer. Can't wait for the BTS, K-pop, and Bollywood halftime shows in the foreseeable future. Justin, to really hammer it down, how many NFL games are being played outside of the U.S. next season? The answer to that is 8. And I do believe that Rock Nation getting the halftime gig was a response specifically to the Colin Kaepernick problem and the idea that they had where there was a lot of press attention that was going toward kneeling players and questions of patriotism and racial equity. And the halftime show, which is something that has been a challenging part of the NFL Super Bowl presentation because they don't want to spend money on it. This was an elegant solution. You have essentially a management company that can then sell advertising to cover a budget. And now you have a management company / music label that has incentive to put people on to increase streams and playlists. And you have Apple Music, that is the title sponsor for it, to put on more relevant acts than had been there before. So it wasn't just finding Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen years and years after they had major hit albums. That being said, I'm glad you brought up K-pop, because I think a K-pop halftime show I would have had way less of an issue with because the majority of K-pop songs are in English. You would be able to. Yes.
Oh. In my car with my nieces, it's all Korean. I don't know what the fuck is being said, but it's the dancing that I would be excited for. I don't care what language it is. I think it would be rad.
The biggest hit, and you've heard it a lot during the Olympics, is from K-pop Demon Hunters, the Netflix thing called Soda Pop. Or no, not Soda Pop's another song from it. Golden is the big hit there. But yeah, there's a lot of songs that are just hit songs that are sung in English that have English, there's Korean within it, but that's big hits there. You could do an entire halftime show where the majority of the words would be understood by the majority of the audience. Yes, you are expanding into different markets. And again, I like Bad Bunny. I feel like if you were to probably add up how many people have listened to Bad Bunny songs before the halftime show, I'd probably win that contest amongst the three of us. It's just a thing there. So anyway, there we go. We fucking derailed another goddamn show with the halftime talk.
Yeah, this was never a topic.
Big Bunny is the Charlie
Big
Nagatani
Bunny.
of our time.
You call him Big Bunny?
I love it. From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young from just next to the river.
I'm Jen Briney.
And from Washington, D.C.
I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong on this edition of the program. We're going to talk about the Save America Act. And I also want to broaden it out a little bit to just concerns about election security, which I believe are now a bipartisan concern. And we're going to talk about something that was sent in by a listener for which I couldn't help but have a conversation about. It is the story of Amelia, a character from a UK government-backed anti-extremism game that has now become the mascot, nay, waifu of the insurgent populist right of Britain. We will explain this little curiosity on the online world a little bit later, plus your emails. Let's get in to the Save America Act. The Safeguard Americans Voter Eligibility Act is a federal proposal requiring proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. It would mandate states to verify citizenship using documentary evidence such as a passport, birth certificate, or qualifying government ID, and remove non-citizens from voter rolls. Supporters argue it strengthens election integrity and ensures only citizens vote. Opponents argue non-citizen voting is already illegal and rare, and that stricter documentation requirements could disenfranchise eligible voters, particularly married women, naturalized citizens, rural residents, and lower-income Americans who lack easy access to these required documents. Supporters in the House want the Senate to enact the talking filibuster to pass it. Traditionalists, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune, believe that that would be the same as eliminating the filibuster and has said he will not do it. Jen, should the Save America Act be passed, and should the talking filibuster be used to pass it?
So before I get into the shoulds here, I just want to clear a few things up. And it's actually because I feel like on this show, I kind of play the role of like the left, as much as I hate that. And there's been a lot of bullshit that's been spread about this. First of all, there are two bills that are being discussed as if they are the same, and they're not. There is the SAVE Act and there's the Save America Act. They are similar, but they are not the same. The SAVE Act passed back in April, and it's just been sitting in the Senate. It was basically declared dead on arrival. One of the reasons it was declared dead on arrival is because it would have had a lot of effects on married women, because there wasn't a pathway if your name didn't match the name on your birth certificate. So the Save America Act has been updated based on some of the uproar of the SAVE Act. And so that's what we're really talking about here is the Save America Act.
Yes.
Another thing that that I've heard way too much is that the only way, if this became law, that you could register is with a birth certificate or a passport. That is not true. So you could use final adoption certificates that showed the location of birth. You could use a naturalization certificate. So if you're someone who became a citizen after being born, like you can still register to vote. Real IDs are going to be a problem here. A lot of people think that those should qualify. In most cases right now, they do not, because permanent residents and other non-citizens who are here legally are allowed to get real IDs. I've actually checked here and there's a lot of conflicting information. So some people are saying that this would actually help some blue states because those are the only ones that comply. My research that I just did said that it was 5 red states. So that's pretty unclear who would benefit from this. I can't really put it one way or another, but the point is the vast majority of real IDs that have been issued in the United States would not qualify you. So you would have to do extra documents in order to register. And then it also allows regular, just like government IDs that show your birth location. But I think what's really important to know here is that it doesn't pay for any of these. And so when I look at both versions of the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, even though the Save America Act would allow someone like me, if I didn't have a passport, I could give my birth certificate and show my marriage certificate, and now I would be eligible to register. Even with those changes, the fact that none of these IDs are paid for, that's a poll tax, and that's unconstitutional. Here's the problem. Even though it's unconstitutional, that would take some time to get through the courts. Both of these versions of this, what I consider a voter suppression attempt by the Republican Party, I'm not going to mince any words here. The goal here is to make it harder to vote for the 2026 election because both of them would be effective on the date of enactment. And this would require the states in both of them to set up a pretty sophisticated process because in the Save America Act, there is a process for people that can't provide the proof of their citizenship. The states are required to create a process that's like kind of subjective, but the election officials would have a way to help people that can't get the proof for whatever reason to register to vote. So in that respect, it's not as, horrible a bill as I think like some, Team Blue people are making it out to be. But the fact that it's effective on the date of enactment and they're trying to do this during an election that has already begun, because here in Texas and in North Carolina, we are already voting in the primaries. This has already begun. Getting these states to get this process up and running would be almost impossible. They provide no money whatsoever to give to the states to change all of their election procedures. Also, I think this is one of the main goals here. People who haven't been documented, there is a pathway in here, and it is very unclear how legal it is, but there is a pathway for people who haven't proved that they're citizens to be removed from voter rolls. Removing people from voter rolls is something the Republican Party has been doing now for decades that I know of. I started paying attention to it during the George W. Bush years, so that was 20 years ago. And so they're putting up hurdles to get new people to vote. So like, for instance, if you have a state that allows you to register to vote online or by mail, that's not going to be enough anymore. You can't just send in a copy of your passport along with your voter registration. You have to go somewhere in person in order to show this. That's valid in both of the versions of the bill. So they're putting up hurdles to allow people to vote. And I've looked at the studies on this. Non-citizens voting on elections is not an actual big problem that we have in this country. So they're solving for a non-issue. I think a lot of people would have fewer problems with this if the IDs were free, and if there were enough time to get these new processes in place, but they're not. And so I think the goal of this is voter suppression, because the Republican Party has a long history of this, but I also think chaos. Because if you looked at the attempts by Donald Trump and the Republicans in 2020 to steal that election, it really came down to they were trying to cause chaos with the counting of the votes on January 6th. It was the chaos that was going to throw the election into the House of Representatives. And so it's the chaos that would allow any election that they wanted to challenge, they could say, well, this didn't comply with the Save America Act, or, they didn't purge the rolls enough, or, we did all these purges, all these people weren't on the voter rolls. Too fucking bad. They didn't vote. There's nothing you can do about it. So I think the chaos is the point, and the fact that they didn't push enactment until, a reasonable amount of time to get these systems up and running, that's the giveaway to me. So should the Save America Act be passed? Absolutely not. And should the talking filibuster be used to pass it? I mean, if the Republicans are willing to change the rules of the Senate to make this happen, this is low even for the Republican Party. And it's fascinating to me to just see how many new lows they can hit during the 119th Congress. But this is a very bad bill. And I hope it doesn't pass. Right now, it doesn't look like it's going to. Lisa Murkowski, senator from Alaska, Republican, is saying she won't vote for it. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm against it, but it's not quite as bad as it's made out to be.
Heaton?
First, Jen, that's a fantastic analysis.
Thank you.
And you clearly did your homework on that. I am less fired up about this one, and would I'm maybe like 55% in favor, 45% against, but not enough that I would scuttle the filibusters. So I'm probably with John Thune on this one. The things that I'd like to supplement Jen's analysis with are the good faith argument that we can get into. When we get into voter integrity and election security, there are two different values that Republicans and Democrats historically are championing. And both of them have a point. They basically boil down to this. In the same way that when we talk about the criminal justice system and the idea that it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than for one innocent person to go to jail, it's kind of similar with, would you rather have a system where there's no fraudulent voting, but because there's higher security, you're going to erect hurdles and disenfranchise voters? Or would you rather have a system where we want to make sure that everybody gets to vote, but there's going to be, yes, the occasional fraudulent voter mixed in? That's pretty much it. That's the good faith argument is, do you want purity with hurdles, or do you want lack of purity but make sure everybody can do it? And the Democrats are on the side of, as Jen rightly points out, all the studies say that this is a non-issue. Me personally, in terms of voter fraud, I'm a lot more worried about like state party apparatuses than I am about illegal immigrants. I think just going from the gut here, there's a Honduran restaurant not too far from me. Every time I go in, people are frightened of me because I look like a narc. And the first 2-3 times I went in there, like it was clear that they were worried that I was going to like do an ICE raid or something. And I'm like, guys, I don't have a mask. I have a cowboy hat for my hair. Don't worry, I just want cheese, right? I don't think any of those people, I think the vast, vast majority of illegal immigrants are very frightened to get in the crosshairs of any kind of federal situation and are not going to view it as worth it to try to commit fraudulent voting. So I don't disagree that it's a very, very minor thing. But that's basically the breakdown. I'd say the other breakdown that's worth pointing out is that you're going to have to, with any kind of voter security, either do it on the front end where the burden is on voters, or do it on the back end where the burden is on state governments. In this instance, the bulk of the hurdle is on the front end because voters are going to have to bring their identifications in order to be able to do it. But on the administrative end, it's on the back end. So I move around a lot. Sometimes I'll go to a place, I think I did this in Austin, where I'd lived there, but I hadn't got a normal voter ID in time, so I could show up and get a provisional ballot. What I had to do was sign a sworn affidavit in front of a witness saying I am a legal citizen and a resident of Austin, Texas, who is eligible to vote in this election. And if it turns out that I'm incorrect about that, I am perjuring myself and I'm subject to litigation from the federal or from the government. That would not be so much what's happening here. In terms of the liability, the upfront stuff's going to be on the voter. In terms of liability, it's going to be on the bureaucrat. So one of the things that they did to strengthen the bill is they took out some of the more stringent parts about having to show your ID every time. That was initially in it, where every time you go to vote, you have to show your ID. They removed that from the final copy of it. And there is a provision in it that says every state should have a mechanism in place to allow for discrepancies to be dealt with, presumably people that have maiden names that are different on their birth certificate from their real ID or whatever, from their passport, right? That all makes sense, but it does mean that the liability is on the bureaucrat now, because the person that is the one signing the affidavit is no longer the voter, it's the bureaucrat, and the bureaucrat's going to be on the hook, which means that there's going to be issues in terms of how severe penalties if the bureaucrat gets anything wrong, if it's a good faith, intelligent position and they don't file something correct. Are they going to be looking at penalties? Are they going to look at criminal time? That kind of thing. So those are the things that stand out to me. The bad arguments that Jen touched on that I'll elaborate on a little bit more are, I think the 69 million married women getting disenfranchised is really, really, really overblown. I've seen that number floated around. I think maybe the Brennan Center quotes that. 69 million married women is the sum total of married women in the country. That's all the married women in the country. most of them are not going to have a problem with it for the exact same reason that right now it's not a problem for married women to get passports, for example, even though their birth certificate will conflict in terms of their last name with their name on residential documents and things. And the reason for that is that most married women have some kind of linking document, like a marriage certificate or a court order or a decree of divorce, that bridges the gap between the two and allows them to get that ID. So I think there would be situations where if you are poor and rural or poor and black or something like that, and you just don't really have the paperwork from when you were a kid, you didn't hold on to it, that could become a problem. That could become a hurdle. But I've had conversations with friends before here in DC where they think the goal is to just not have married women vote. And I don't think the goal of the Republican Party would be to ensure passport voters are eligible, but not married women. That would not be a particularly canny electoral strategy on behalf of Republicans. So I don't share the bad faith intentions that Jen has on this, although those are relevant concerns that she brings up. I think that this is a longstanding Republican issue of they're very, very, very worried about election integrity. I think they're right to be worried about election integrity because they tried to steal the election in 2024. Like we have had people try to steal. Excuse me, 2020. My bad. 2020. Thank you. They tried to steal thank you. Just agreeing with me. They tried to steal the election in 2020.
Well, no. We'll get to who believes the 2024 election was stolen in a second, but go ahead.
This is one of the other canards that I have of like, I am not, in principle, I am not opposed to the idea of having ID for voting. That doesn't rankle me on a philosophical level. If I get in I draw the line at the Kristi Noem show me your papers thing of just all citizens need to have proof of citizenship when we walk around. That's some Stasi bullshit. No. But if I'm getting in a car and I'm driving around in a car, I think it's reasonable to say that I have to have my driver's license on me when I'm operating a motor vehicle. If I'm getting on a plane and I'm going through TSA, I think it's reasonable to have some kind of ID to go through that line. So in that same way, just having some kind of identification in order to vote doesn't strike me as immoral or unprincipled or opposed to the American experience or anything like that. When I bring that up with more Khmer Blue type people, they will bring up what we agree on, that the existent studies on voter fraud put like illegal immigrants voting at 0.035% in what I've seen. Is probably a little bit higher than that because we're not actually looking for it that much. It's more like when we catch people than actively going off. But even if it's higher, it's probably not orders of magnitude. We're talking about like a dozen people in a state per year. And if we tripled that, we're still not talking about big numbers. So they're right about that. But when they say that like any type of voter security is just an attempt at voter suppression because no one would ever commit fraud, I bring up, but the Republicans tried to commit fraud. They literally had fake electors lined up that swore that they'd been certified by secretaries of state and tried to get the election stolen as a result of that. So I don't have faith that if the Republicans would be willing to steal an election through fraudulent electors and getting specific blue counties not recounted, but just cast out of the election process, I'm not convinced that they wouldn't stoop to voter fraud. So I say this all as a roundabout way of saying, yeah, voter fraud is a concern for me in general, largely because of 2020, and having security in place to do it makes sense to me. Where I'd push back a little bit on Jen is I think that even though this is a non-problem from where I'm looking at, I think having faith in the integrity of the system is very important. And if half the country wrongly thinks that the system is insecure and we can do something to bolster that, that makes sense to me. Some of the other issues that I'll point out, the poll tax thing's fascinating, Jen. That had not occurred to me, and that is a really interesting legal angle on it. The kind of prima facie legal angle that I've heard, I think would not resonate with the courts under, and that's just states' rights. That state elections, they're prerogative of state governments. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution says the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof, states' rights, but then immediately says, but the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations. So just the fact that the federal government would interpolate itself into regulating elections, I think, is constitutionally sound. We've already gone through it too. There was a voter act that happened in '93 under Clinton that got opposed in the courts. Scalia was in favor of it. So I don't think that would be a problem. I don't know enough about constitutional law to know whether the poll tax would qualify as a poll tax. The reason I say that is my scant understanding of con law in this regard is that the court relies on the Anderson-Burdick test, which has a three-pronged approach of how severe is the burden on voting rights, what interest does the state assert to justify the rule, and does the state's interest justify the burden imposed. So there is a rubric to assess excessive hurdles. You could argue, if you were on the Republican side, that it's not requiring everybody to purchase an ID because they can use their existent documents of birth certificate and so on and so forth. So I don't know whether that would hold in court or not, whether that would be considered excessive, but I think you could argue that it's not obligatory that everybody purchase an ID. So I don't know if that would work or not, but I don't know enough about the Anderson-Burdick test to weigh in on it.
Well, just real quick, those documents aren't free either.
Your birth
so
certificate?
It's like if you order your birth certificate, like you do get charged for that. So like the state of Colorado charged me for mine because like I'm collecting documents now for a visa. So my marriage certificate, I had to pay Hawaii. Like they don't just send this stuff for free. And so I think like, I know that, I read HR 1. It's not that Democrats don't care. And I actually don't think that a lot of Democrats are all that against having voter ID, but the IDs have to be free or the documents have to be free because that's the poll tax. And, when it comes to election integrity, they actually had a bill, HR 1, back when they had full control, where they had a bunch of things. It was, paper ballots. They wanted to have election day be a holiday. They wanted to make it easier for people to vote. So I think that there's actually a lot of agreement in a lot of us have questions about our elections, but the how matters. And so that's why when I look at the details of the Save America Act, like Andrew, you were talking about, you're calling them bureaucrats, but like a lot of the burden is placed on election workers. Yeah. And like I've been an election worker. And so there's criminal penalties if you're an election worker that allows someone to vote. But so much of this is subjective where the states don't have time to put in a hard process for this election. That puts people in real danger of getting in trouble for not obeying a system that isn't even created yet. So it's like, I see what you're saying in theory, but I do wonder when you know the details of this, do you go from 55-45 to something a little more against it? Because
you can sway me. I mean, like I'm
shocker.
I'm barely, this just like when we're talking about political economy, I tend to have much more firm beliefs and I tend to I feel more in my wheelhouse. With this one, I'm not as moved by this as regular. I did not know that you have to pay for your birth certificate. I just figured you wrote the county courthouse. That, and in which case, if all of the ID that is required necessitates paying a fee, I think that your argument would hold water, that it would qualify as a poll tax and it might be struck down by the courts under that. I also agree with you, Jen, that a big problem with this bill is, one, there's a lot of subjectivity for poll workers. I think a lot of the liability would fall on bureaucrats in that the bill, as I recall, specifies like the election advisability committee or something to that effect, and
there's
also
a commission,
and the Secretary of State. So those ones would properly be bureaucrats. But I don't disagree that if it is ambiguous and there are penalties associated with it for the people making those decisions, that it could have a staunching effect on them. And then I also agree with you that just the fact that it's unfunded is a big deal. The fact that this is giving a administrative burden to states without funding for it causes a problem because the states have to get more manpower and more people. I don't disagree with any of that. Part of the reason that I'm not really fired up to go, I'm 70% or I'm 30%, is with something that is such a big national important issue like elections and states' rights, I think that you want to have a consensus on it rather than a slim majority. And for that reason, I wouldn't get rid of the filibuster. So if it's not going to reach that hurdle of getting at least 60 senators, including some Democrats, then this would be a non-issue for me anyway, because I wouldn't push it that hard.
Makes sense.
With the talking filibusters, when it was last used in 1964 to pass the Civil Rights Act, when was it decided that that should not be used?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I'm a bit lost on this. I understand a filibuster. Yeah. I thought a filibuster, standard filibuster, and I'm really asking for clarification here. I'm not making any arguments. A filibuster is where you go to the Senate Majority Leader and say, I'm filibustering this. And then they go, we don't have cloture or some other word. And they go, we don't have enough, right? A talking filibuster, as I understood it, is what you use to impede legislation by giving a really lengthy speech.
Yes.
And so I don't understand how they're going to get it passed using a talking filibuster rather than just not have, like, I understand if they're saying we're going to get rid of the filibuster, which John Thune's already clarified he's not going to do. I don't understand how being able to talk a long time would do it if the Republicans are the one talking.
This is a big argument, right? Because there's like a gentleman's agreement in the Senate that 60 votes is the threshold, except for what used to be one reconciliation bill. And then Chuck Schumer was like, nah, how about 2 reconciliation bills? And so that now is kind of the gentleman's agreement.
And confirmations.
And then confirmations got wacky under Senate Majority Leader Reid, and then he changed it. And so McConnell said, if you change it, then we're going to change it for the Supreme Court. And so they changed it for the Supreme Court. So these things do shift, right? You can make the argument that we are on a course for the filibuster writ large to just kind of go away. And each side points to the other one and says, we need to change it because when they get in charge, they're going to change it, blah, 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 blah. The question that I have, and I would echo some of the people who have talked about this, is that there's never been a decision that the talking filibuster should not be something ever used. That hasn't been outlawed. It was just kind of a gentleman's agreement that people weren't going to do it because it was very ugly for the senators, including Al Gore's daddy, in 1964, that had to be on the record on something that wound up becoming really unpopular, like the Civil Rights Act. It was a thing that smeared Barry Goldwater until the day that he died and afterward, because he just didn't sign on to cloture. It wasn't even like he didn't agree on the bill. So senators don't want themselves on the record with this kind of shit. And so that's why the talking filibuster went away.
Wait, won't they have to vote on it on the record?
They would eventually have to vote on it, but they don't want, but when you become the story talking about a thing and then we metastasize into that being the press, it's a different world than a vote. A vote is a thing that happens and then it goes away, it fades, right? If you are the face of this thing, that defines the rest of your career.
It's also about, it's a delay tactic. And so right now they've made the delay so easy because basically you send an email and then you've just delayed it forever. This would at least put some effort into it, because then the vote would happen at the end of the talking filibuster. So in order to delay it for a week or a month, you would have to line up enough Democrats to talk for a week or a month or however long John Thune decides to keep
it's
Congress
a gamble.
Open.
It's a gamble by the majority, because you're saying we're going to tie up floor time for these people to register your complaint. So it is incentivized for you to be doing things that the American public would support, because that's ultimately what happened with civil rights. LBJ bet on the idea that the longer segregationists talked, the less the public would appreciate them, and the more that their position would be untenable. And he was right. He passed the Civil Rights Act, making that bet, not knowing exactly what the vote was going to be, but knowing that there was a block of segregationists that needed to be essentially bled out of their argument, and the American people would render judgment. In that vein, which again, it is a gamble. The Democrats can say, look, we're here to do it because we just don't want the Republicans to ever pass anything else this term that we're just going to eat up all the time. We are going to keep talking until they need to go away. I think the talking filibuster is something that probably should be used. And whether or not I think that it's smart for the Republicans to do it on this, because I do think that they can sell it as voter ID, and voter ID is generally popular across both parties, and getting people on the record talking about other stuff, I think would probably benefit them. But in general, if you have something that can't get to 60 votes for whatever reason, but is majority popular with the public, then making the other side talk. Make them put their opposing arguments on the record. And if it eventually leads to something that, look, my biggest problem is that right now we have fully mainstreamed and normalized bad faith arguments about our elections. And the Republicans have done it, and the Democrats now are doing it, to the point where I have very normal people in my lives that are connected to politics that are like, are you going to trust what the election results are in the midterms? And I'm like, yes, I will trust what the election results are in the midterms, because the Democrats have, aside from there being a pocket of people that have fully QAnoned and believe that Elon Musk stole the election in 2024 by way of Starlink internet, regardless of whether or not that is fucking technically possible, there is now top fucking leaders in the Democratic Party that are talking about how there will not be a free and fair election in the midterms. And that's bad, in the same way that it's fucking really bad that the president of the United States talks about how there was not a free and fair election in 2020. We are desperately in need of a shoring up of public trust in our elections. And what I would like to see is some kind of conference for people to take this kind of stuff seriously and address it, and take some of the stuff from HR 1 that people liked. Take the fact that voter ID is popular. Let's mash it together and put a big old pile of money in to fund some of these document creations, and let's go forward. Let's find a middle ground here, because I think America needs it. The reason why it's not going to happen is even more fucking depressing. And I'll take a little bit of a detour. Last night on Capitol Hill, the Republicans assembled a team to talk about what their strategy is going to be in the midterms. And they went over themes that they want to hit, that they want to be on podcasts, be on social media, be on television talking about. Banning stock trading, reminding voters that it was their tax breaks that brought them a tax refund this spring. Want to know the one thing that they said is fucking useless and don't mention? That the border's closed. Now, the border used to be a talking point, a very reliable talking point for Republicans for years and years and years and years, for decades. It was something that was mentioned. And right now, it's a non-issue. You want to know what that incentivizes? Zero political activity. There's a reason why politicians don't fucking solve problems, because it is a thing that motivates people out to vote. So when Democrats are saying there's not going to be a free and fair election unless we all show up, it's essentially John Ossoff in his Obama impression, which he said last night, doing this. It's too big to rig, but with more words, because Democrats like for things to be said fancier. That's it. They're motivating people to go vote. And it's fucking gross to me. And this is not a Republican or Democrat thing per se, although both of them are fucking doing it right now. It is political incentive for politicians to not solve problems. And that's whatever when you're talking about certain issues of our American landscape. But when we're talking about the literal essence of democracy, that we can trust that when we press a button that it is registered and that this is an actual plebiscite, then it's disgusting. And you know, so this bill, I can understand criticisms of it. I do think that some of them are overblown, but the larger problem exists, and it's metastasizing, and it's finding purchase for political windfall in every element of our current system. We are eroding the system of democracy for clout and for money. And I think that it's fucking bad. It's bad and dangerous in a level that demonizing other elements of our political spectrum are not, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with.
Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong is where you need to go if you want to support the program. We're going to be talking about James Tallarico on Colbert. A fascinating situation as polls for early voting open across Texas. Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico in a big primary. And the day before, Colbert says that Brendan Carr of the FCC kept James Tallarico off Colbert. We will talk about that and so much more on the program that you get if you support us. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong.
Did you see that RFK Jr. Kid Rock workout video?
No.
Oh my God.
I mean,
I need to
RFK's
watch it
ripped.
immediately.
For my many criticisms of RFK, the guy is in great shape.
He is, but it's not that he looks like a mannequin. It's just like this whole video is very odd. Like you can tell the color of his skin is not normal. And then there's Kid Rock and they're working out together and then they drink milk in a jacuzzi. It is the weirdest shit I've ever seen out of a government account. Like it came from his Secretary of HHS account. It was fucking bonkers. You need to check it out.
Look, there are elements of the Trump administration that I think are very effective in terms of messaging. Like I really liked the Mike Tyson Super Bowl ad, which was bought by the Trump administration, where he was talking about how his sister died of obesity and diabetes. And I think Mike Tyson, colorful past, but he's a very interesting and charismatic American character that can speak to a demographic that I think is very interesting. I thought the Trump accounts ad was good. I'm done with the memes. I don't need the memes. I don't fucking need it. I'm sorry.
I know,
like,
so dumb.
just calm down. We can not have everything be so weird or objectionable that it has to be clicked on. Like, now that being said, if we are going to focus RFK's energy on anything, I would prefer it to be a message of eating organic foods and doing push-ups. I think that that's probably a better use of his time than talking about our vaccine schedule. I would very much like him to be, if he needs to do diamond push-ups with any number of 90s music acts, get Fred Durst around. Where's the corn guys? Let's have him just do let's have him do sit-ups with all of them. I don't care. Like, that's great. That's fine. But it just doesn't all need to be so fucking weird, dude.
I know.
Like, come on.
Andrew, just for like comedy's sake, check it out after the show. It's
All right.
ridiculous.
Why milk in a hot tub?
Because it's weird and people will talk about it because we're talking about it. That's why.
And their milk thing is weird. Like there's been a couple bills that Congress has passed like on its own. And one of them is to allow whole milk in schools. And so then they cheers to whole milk in a jacuzzi for reasons. Like they're very weird about milk. I don't know. These people are just so fucking weird. So yeah, just watch it.
All right.
Amelia is a character from the UK government-backed anti-extremism game Pathways, designed to show how online grievances can lead to radicalization. In the game, agreeing with her concerns about immigration, veterans, censorship, and national identity pushes the player toward extremism or re-education. Online critics argue that many of her statements are framed as reasonable or fact-based, while unintentionally making her sympathetic. As a result, internet communities, particularly on the UK populist right, have adopted Amelia as a meme figure and cultural mascot. The phenomenon reflects distrust in government messaging, backlash to perceived censorship, and frustration over being labeled far right. In response, Pathways disabled the game because it was getting played too much, and people were siding with Amelia too much that they shut the game down. For people who are unaware, Amelia is a purple-haired goth girl. And so you can only imagine that as the internet has taken to her, the artistic renderings of her have only gotten sassier and sexier.
For my Congress nerds, she looks like a young Rosa DeLauro.
A purple-haired goth girl may well be the mascot for the first populist UK government since 1945's Labour Party victory, which tore down the old order and built the modern welfare state, Heaton. What?
Yeah, this one's actually a little bit harder to unpack, weirdly, because there's less for me to sift through and talk about con law on. So I'll begin by saying this. If you wanted to tell me what is a public media campaign that won't work very well, I'd go put the American federal government in charge of reaching youth through a video game. But if you wanted to go one step further and go, no, we really want to make sure this fails, I'd go, we'll get the British government to do it.
The Brits, they'll do it. They'll question ass.
An even stodgier, more out of touch regime. Try to communicate with people via online stuff. I'm also I've not played the game, so I don't know what it's like.
Well,
I have
nobody
no
can
idea.
now. They've
nobody can now. Yeah. Let me rephrase that. I tried to play the game. but it was disabled by the time we did this one. I don't really like the idea of the government funding ideological campaigns on something like immigration. I'm very much in favor of immigration. I go to the UK all the time. I might move there one day. So it's not that I'm rooting for greater restriction in the United Kingdom. I think the rule in the UK and America should be if you can find anybody in either country that wants to swap with you, it's fine. Like there's plenty of people that want to come to Florida and Scotland, roughly half the population of Scotland. I'd be happy to go over to Edinburgh. So I'm not saying this is somebody in favor of immigration restriction, but it's a valid argument to have for a people. So I feel a little weird that there would be government funding to try to de-radicalize people from an immigration talk. Although I don't know, again, I don't know the game. Maybe she goes from being anti-immigrant to being, racist and bigoted and things like that. I think a lot of the concern that's going on, I find that when I talk to British people, they are all wetting the bed over the Reform Party. I think
it's coming, and Amelia's coming with them.
I think it's overblown. All right, so this is my logic here. The next UK election's what, 2 or 3 years away, Justin? Have I got that right?
Depends on whether or not Keir Starmer throws a shit fit and calls one.
Right, because in the UK,
because he's getting pushed out of the bed right now.
Right. Well, so like all of my British friends, save like Dominic Frisby, are very worried about reform taking over. And I guess this is a very American preset that I've got. At this point in the last election cycle, RFK Jr. was polling at 15%. And he didn't like that as you're far away from the election, people are willing to flirt with third parties. The same thing happens with the LP, the Libertarian Party and the Green Party. People will be like, yeah, I think I'm going to vote Libertarian this time. And it'll poll at like 10%, 15%. And then as you get to the polls, people go, nah, I got to vote for a blue team or I got to vote for a red team. I'm not going to throw it. And then it all craters. So I'm not at all convinced that reform is going to take over the UK. The dissolution of the Conservative Party, which I've heard from Tories and Labour alike, they think it's going to get. I think a more likely alternative is exactly what happened with Keir Starmer, which is the Reform Party is large enough to suck the wind out of the sails of the Tories, and it just puts Labour right back in place. So I think that's probably going to happen. But otherwise, I don't know. I find the story kind of funny. It's like if the federal government went, what if we had like a funny French frog, like Pepe the Frog, and Pepe the Frog taught people why Nazis are bad. I don't see how any troll with a lot of online time and a great desire to get lols could possibly make this backfire. I think something like that occurred.
Jen, what is your take on Amelia? Would you follow her into Reform UK battle?
Well, I mean, just the whole premise of the government trying to set up this game and like making it so you're supposed to hate a certain person. Like they were just begging for the trolls to come out and for people to try to like her. It's like the more the government tries to push something to happen, the more we're going to push back. We're actually going to kind of cross over into our Patreon topic here, but the same thing is kind of happening right now with the FCC pushing Colbert to not air the Tamarico. Is that how you say it? Is there an M?
Tallarico.
Tallarico. Yeah. They didn't want that aired, and now it's gotten over.
Spoilers for the for the Patreon.
Well, I feel like everybody knows this. Everybody knows this, but like no one's really. I mean, I don't know anyone that watches the Colbert interviews regularly, but there have been over 3 million people that went and looked for that interview. And it's because like the government was perceived as trying to silence something.
As the government was doing it. Yes.
Would you like to go on?
Keep it in your pants, guys. This is a Patreon topic. Listen, listeners, listen to this great growing topic that we're going to discuss after the paywall.
Yes. I'm going back to Amelia. My point is that I think when a government is trying to shut something down, whether it's an idea or a political movement or whatever, when you see the official state go against something, I just feel like it's our shithead nature as citizens to be like, we're going to do the opposite, or at the very least make fun of you. And so I think this is that's happening.
The Streisand effect.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. So I also find it kind of funny. I also find it kind of weird that they tried to make basically like the British MAGA chick, the purple hair.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, what
Yeah.
are
Too
you
clever,
doing?
too clever by half.
It's a 57-year-old woman from Devonshire. That's who it is. It's not a purple-haired girl that's in a polyamory situation. She's not the one that they're. Yeah, it's a
No.
bizarre one.
Yeah, the far
also
right
it's
is
just-
not known for their purple hair.
It's kind of funny too that like, so I was having a conversation yesterday about podcasting and like how I have to make sure that guests are both substantive and entertaining. Why is that? Because I am competing with porn. I am constantly competing with porn. My show has to be entertaining enough that if people are at home, they don't go, I'd rather just jack off. I'm literally competing with porn, right? I'm aware of that
Even while
all
driving.
times.
Even while they're driving. Yeah.
Yep. I'm aware of that, right? So like I've got to have a really high bar. So if you're going to take on the world of video games, which are more amazing and addictive than at any point in human history, they're far exceeding Mario Brothers 3. And like, you're like, we're going to have a really fun video game that teaches people, vegetables, of how to not be a bigot. Like, wow, what a boondoggle that's going to be.
Yeah. You get a warp whistle to Bad Idea Town. Yeah.
But at least some contractors probably made a lot of money off the British government from that. I'm guessing somebody was second cousins with the minister of balloon dogs or whatever and was able to actually, Ted, I think if you were to give us £8 million, we could probably have a real banger of a video game.
I would imagine that probably cost the British taxpayer a staggering amount of money to make that game.
Probably.
Like, that was probably a pretty expensive outlay. This kind of brings it beyond the Amelia stuff, but like, there was a thing today about New York City because Mayor Mamdani is going to raise property taxes. And so somebody was just kind of breaking down how much the city spends per citizen. And I thought that was an interesting way because it's gone up over the past, and this is not a Mamdani thing. This is, just New York City government over the past 20 years. It's gone up significantly, even as the population of the city has not. And it softened even during COVID. And I thought that's, now that we live in a world where everything's a subscription, if you just think of both your federal, state, and city taxes as a subscription, like what you pay versus what you get. Even if we are to understand that what we get is the satisfaction of helping people that are not as fortunate as us. Like, I think that's an interesting way to think of it. And I don't think we would have been able to do it before in a world where we didn't all have to manage 30 subscriptions at all times. Like now that everything
in that
is
case,
kind of
Justin, that case, for most of the people listening, the most expensive purchase or subscription you will make in your entire life is taxes.
Of course. Yeah. Now, on the one hand, for the federal side, there's some benefits. We get to knock over an Ayatollah every once in a while, like we might do in the next 48 hours. But like,
we get roads. We get bridges.
And roads. Also roads.
But
a little less, fun than knocking over Islamic State. I don't know. I mean, but I would like to do a breakdown. I'd like to be in the same way that Paramount Plus is like you get UFC and Landman and South Park. Like, there's like a layout. Like I would like to do that for everybody's city, state, and I'm actually, when I can finally get Adderall again, I'm planning to sit down and do I'm having issues with my doctor, but I'm compensating with lots of nicotine, which is far worse for me. I would like to do. Are you doing Zins?
Yeah. Are you smoking cigarettes?
No,
now?
Velo. Velo's the thinking man's Zen, Justin.
Velo?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I want to do an episode on that. Like, I want to do an episode of where does your money go on a percentage basis within the federal government? Like, so let's just use a big round number, like $100,000 per year.
Yeah.
One thing I would be really concerned with is what percentage of the money that I am paying in my taxes goes to help homeless people. That is
Yeah.
a very big concern for me. I don't have the numbers. I think it's probably vanishingly low if you're looking at the actual proportion of things going on. Because like I donate thousands of dollars to homeless charities every year. I'm already doing it. I'm happy to part ways with my money. My problem, as always, is not the taking the money so much as the spending of the money in a dumb way. And your wish will be granted, Justin. I will do an episode on this in the near future of where your tax dollars go.
I'm looking it up right now, but I think usaspending.gov still exists, which is the project to actually it's still there.
Great. Okay.
So that should make that easier for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. I would like to see who is the most, like, we'd have to figure out a metric, but like the most efficient spender of tax dollars. Like if you were to say, like, where do you get the most, like, what is the prime, like when HBO Max had like 5 shows that you wanted to watch, no matter what, you were just in HBO Max all the time. Cause it's like, like there's all this cool stuff there. It's like, where's that for taxes? Like who's really like just knocking it out of the park with, what you're spending your tax money on? Because I think that's more where I would like to get us as a country is not think about things of like, okay, well, things suck, tax more, because ultimately that doesn't fix the hole in the bucket problem, right? If you have a hole in the bucket, then more water doesn't fix it. And if anything, it probably incentivizes the people that are, bad actors to keep doing things. And that's, I think, where California's gotten themselves into a lot of problems with like some of these homelessness NGOs, which are incentivized by head of homeless person, which means that they are not incentivized to reduce the homeless population. They are incentivized to increase it if you are getting paid per head. Similarly, I just would like to see things, I don't know. And I don't know who does it better. Like the American mind immediately goes to like the magical land of Scandinavia, which we just kind of think is like, oh, it's brisk weather, big tits, and efficient government. Like what an amazing place.
Is.
Things that Americans love the most. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they really are knocking it out of the park. Maybe it's somewhere else. I don't know.
I would argue that they are.
Maybe it's China.
I don't think so. When I went to
either, but I said it so I wouldn't be racist.
Yeah, when I went to Nordo, Scandinavia, because they're really big about the Finns aren't Scandinavian, because as we all know, Scandinavians are people with a high tax, high social welfare state that speak Uralic-based languages. Germanic languages, whereas the Finns are high welfare, high tax Uralic languages, completely different. But if you talk to Swedes or Norwegians about this, or Finns, they're all emphatic that they're not, the Finns aren't Scandinavian. But anyway, I went over there. Their system does work pretty well. You can have an argument about whether you'd want to have taxes that high or not. I think that's a reasonable argument. They would be higher, and it would be higher on us. It wouldn't be higher on the wealthy. It'd be higher on us. But it's a good argument, and to their credit, they get good bang for their buck. You pay a lot more in taxes, but they do seem to go to the actual things you'd want government to spend on. I would love for more people to go to Scandinavia and talk to people over there, because I think that there's a lot of presumptions about it that are just assumed and wrong. Like, here's one. They're all capitalist. Every one of those countries is capitalist. Like, remember when the Prime Minister of Denmark flew to America to correct Bernie Sanders that Denmark is not socialist? Like, there's a presumption that they're socialist. They're not socialist. They have market economies. What they have is high taxes, but those taxes are paid by poor and middle class people disproportionately. Like, if you're making, I want to say $60,000 a year in Sweden or higher, you pay 50% in taxes. So it's much higher taxes on the middle class. It's less progressive than it is in the United States in terms of our tax rate. But what they figured out was, look, we don't have enough rich people to have them pay for everything. So the middle class and the poor have to pay for it. That's the bargain. But you get good bang for your buck on it.
If you get bang for your buck, I think that's all people care about.
Yeah.
The sad part, the black pill element of it, is that when you cut this gigantic check and you're like, awesome, my roads suck shit and there's high crime. Good for me, I guess. You guys are doing awesome with my money. if everything around me that you're in charge of sucks ass and all I do is cut a bigger check every year, like that's where you get people that get angry about stuff. It's not necessarily even cutting the check. If you cut the check and then 2 or 3 times a year there was a benefit where you're like, oh, oh, did you see Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Like, I think I'm going to keep subscribing to HBO Max. It's really good.
They also basically have like an inverted power model where, like in our country, most of your taxes are going to the federal government, then your state government, then your municipal government. In effect, in Sweden, you're having most of your taxes sent to and administered at what we would call the county level.
Yeah.
It's not really handled at the national level. Like when I went over there, I was very surprised to find out that I frequently ask Europeans, do you like your healthcare? They all love their healthcare. And I go, do you think your healthcare would be better if instead of Danish healthcare, there was just EU healthcare run out of Brussels? And everybody says that's a horrible idea. In Sweden, they don't even do that. Like in Sweden, the Swedes are like, that would be crazy to have healthcare handled at the national level. They have it. All of the counties are different because they're like, well, the what they call regions, the rural region is going to be different than Stockholm. So like they're going to have different, like it's much more localized. And I think that has a benefit too, in that right now, if I want to talk to a representative about how the bulk of my taxes are being spent, I can talk to my member of Congress who has a constituency of 750,000 people who I'm probably never going to meet, or I can talk to one of my 2 senators who have an even larger constituency who I'm definitely not going to meet. But when it's at like the regional or county level, you can just run into the guy at the pub and be like, Sven, what the fuck? Like, why haven't you fixed the roads yet? We paid our taxes last week.
Yeah. Fucking Sven. Always dicking off. That's who Amelia is coming for. The Svens of the world.
Yeah.
For the record, I disagree with you, Heaton. I think reform, it's going to be reform the next time. Like this has not gone away, and I don't think it's going to go away. I think that the Tories are kind of toast. You've got people leaving, abandoning the party. They don't really have new ideas, and the Labor government is, kind of shitsville right now. And that was before the Epstein stuff started.
Maybe the Lib Dems will come back. I think I'd be a Lib Dem if I were British. Maybe they'll finally pick up some seats. Yeah. I always go for the loser.
We're Not Wrong Pod. That's why you're on this show. We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com and not the 5th column. Well, actually writes, in the podcast, Heaton said mega study. The proper term would be meta study when you analyze a bunch of other studies out there.
Agree to disagree.
Unless it was big, then it's a mega
bitch.
study.
Yeah, agree to disagree, listener.
European leaders' popularity in free fall was one of our topics last week. Just a guess, right? I think many places in Europe are tired of their parliaments where their party gets 20 to 30% of the vote and then forms a coalition with communists who take control, to take their country into more debt and constantly increase the nanification and infringement of the rights of the people. You might not get enough votes to have one party win 50% of the vote, but tons of people hate the coalitions that form because of their small margins. And then you have reactions to people being called far-right extremists when they're just normal people, because when you compare normal people against communists, they will appear far-right compared to those evil commie bastards.
This is not a biased email at all.
I
wonder what you get accused of being, my friend.
I kind of like it, and I'll agree with this on 2 points. One, I hate the idea that everything is always on a left-right spectrum. I think that that's stupid to begin with. If we just accepted around 1940 that there's a universal string theory where all politics is along a unispectrum, and that's stupid bullshit. So theoretically, if you have somebody that is pro-gun and pro-choice, and they're radically like everybody should have a gun, and you should be able to, just walk in and get an abortion like at the grocery store. And
Bernie Sanders in the 90s.
Yep. And you have somebody that's incredibly pro-life and also is in favor of gun restrictions. They're both centrists, even though they don't agree on anything. They both count as centrists because they have, of the 40 different ideas that we try to cram onto this unispectrum, it puts you in the middle. I think it's really stupid. I find whoever I'm talking to thinks that I'm center, whatever they're not, because center just means palatable. It doesn't actually reference anything other than vibes. So I already hate that whole spectrum, and I think it's nonsensical. Where I think there's also a point here to the structural issues that are in Europe that are different than us. In America, we have coalitions and then we have elections. In Europe, they have elections and then they have coalitions. So we have the Democratic Party, which is really like 6 or 7 different parties. I don't know, two to three different parties, let's say 3, that are coming together. They have their primary, then they select their person, and then that guy or gal goes to the general election. The Republicans are 2 or 3 different parties, or were prior to Trump, and do the same thing. And then they fight it, right? In Europe, they don't do that. You get more choice in terms of your candidates most of the time in a multi-parliamentary democracy, where I can pick the bedwetting Enlightenment liberal party and somebody else can pick the fucking commie party. And we have more ideological adherence to what we want. But what we don't get to do is really vote on the coalition that occurs. So when I cast my vote for the bedwetting Enlightenment party, they end up later, after I've cast my vote, going, we're forming a coalition with the female circumcision party because that's the only way we're going to get across the finish line or whatever. So I could see some dissatisfaction happening electorally there. I don't know. I'd still prefer it because I'd rather be able to vote for people that I agree with and have them form a coalition than be stuck between Ramsey Bolton and King Joffrey with the Republicans and Democrats. But I could see how it would irritate some people.
Yeah. And I mean, the only thing I have to say to this person is like, I think that there's probably people that aren't happy with the coalitions that stand for, cutting benefits, and it's not all, people are mad at the commies. Like sometimes people are mad at your far right, cruel policies. So I don't know. I guess none of us think our government is perfect, but there are things about I feel very similar to Andrew on this. Like I dislike the Republicans and the Democrats as our only choices because I think that where there's crossover, it's anti-worker crossover. And I think they're all kind of serving the rich at this point. So if you have 2 parties serving oligarchy, like where the fuck are we supposed to go? At least with these parliamentary systems, you can actually form a coalition of some kind of worker rights. And we don't really have that right now. So yeah, I would still prefer that to what we have.
This is a good example, by the way, Jen, where like we're both disenfranchised, but for completely different reasons.
I know,
because,
right?
Like I'm not like I know that we need to soup up the proletariat, but all the same, like we would occupy the same niche of like disenfranchised, but would not necessarily agree on what that thing is.
But my favorite coalitional party in Portugal is the one that I think I've probably mentioned on the show before, but it's the one that they vote for the animals. So it doesn't really matter what the issue is. Whatever's best for the animals, they get that vote. And so everyone goes to the animal people and makes their case. And I feel like we would be able to agree on like the animals, there are things that you and I agree on. There's things that we don't,
I think we agree on everything except other people's money. Other people's money, you and I fundamentally disagree on, but literally civil liberties, foreign policy, law, everything else, I think we're pretty much in sync.
Yeah, pretty much. To Justin's dismay, he
I
wants us
hope
to
everybody
fight.
understands that I am fucking actively working against all your favorite causes. I genuinely hope everybody understands that, because I am tirelessly. I am up late at night ruining what you want to happen.
There's that troll in his soul.
On the Denmark writes, Denmark just initiated mass deportations. That's likely the reason their current government is popular. There are real issues around immigration, and Sweden is a mess. I actually looked this up because I was not aware of it. But Denmark does have a more aggressive immigration policy than some of their neighbors. This kind of even goes back to the 2000s. But the migration surge in 2015, the Syrian migration surge, which very much affected all of Europe, did reshape public opinion. There was rising support for anti-immigration parties that pressured the center left, and the Social Democrats adopted tougher policies to win back working class voters. That is the current government. And there's broad political consensus formed around limiting asylum inflows. But it was it's not quite as aggressive as I think the emailer was making out. And I don't know whether or not they are of Denmark or whether I'm Denmark-splaining to them. But I did find it interesting because I do think that, look, how Europe deals with immigration issues, I think it's going to define that continent. I think it's the reason why reform will win in the UK is because both the Conservatives and the Labour Party have gotten a crack at it and the public has been unsatisfied by it. So they're going to turn to somebody that has made it his entire personality in Nigel Farage. Will it work? I don't know. We'll find out. But I do think that immigration is a huge issue that not all of Europe, but much of the chattering class of Europe, and I know because I'm friends with a large percentage of them, like they just want to put their fucking head in the ground on it and throw video games at the populace to hope that the purple-haired girl will explain to them that their opinions are wrong. Yeah, right. I might want to correct Eaton on the debt break. Mers ran on a platform of austerity and reforms. He was also one of the biggest proponents of the debt break. Fast forward to him winning the election. He threw all that to the wind, took out $1 trillion, literally, in new debt with the old majority. He is also not delivering on reforms, and that's why he is fundamentally unpopular.
Okay. You know what? I exhausted all of my German political economy constitutional knowledge of the last episode. I don't know the specifics of the political variables beyond what I said. I take your course correction. Thank you.
And the Olympian who admitted cheating on his girlfriend after winning bronze was our other topic. That's a wrap, right? The Olympic organizers ran out of condoms after distributing 10,000 to athletes in the first 3 days of the competition. I'm going to guess that jury is right and Strula is not lacking for affection.
Well, we got to now ask how many people are taking the condoms, because 10,000 sounds like a lot, but how many actual athletes are there?
Not a lot. There's
probably less than 10,000.
Yeah. So there's this thing in the NFL where when somebody drafts a rookie quarterback, there's like a story where they name him team captain and everybody's like, oh my God, he's got to be such an amazing leader. They name the rookie quarterback team captain. It happens all the time. It just, they always make the quarterback the captain because he has to be the leader on the team. This is the same thing at every Olympics my entire life, where at some point there's a story that's like, they ran out of condoms in the Olympic Village, like Olympians be fucking. And I don't know what it is, big Olympian, that just puts this into the bloodstream, whether or not they are that ravenous, because you would think that at some point you'd order more condoms. Like you would have, like, but they always run out. Are they, has this been pushing against like the cap? Do they increase it by 1,000 every year? And these Olympians keep fucking through them? I don't know.
So it's actually not that many condoms. There are 2,900-ish athletes. That's like 3-4 condoms per athlete. Like,
you know what? When they finally make
a couple weeks,
when they finally make bocce ball a sport, and I have a shot at getting in, I'm just gonna bring my own condoms. That doesn't seem that hard, folks. Like you just bring in a dozen. I don't know how many times you gonna fuck. Like I gotta win that. I gotta win that match.
Apparently more than 4 if you're an Olympian.
More than 4. Or somebody's hogging them. I'm telling you, somebody's getting busy.
It's that guy who said that he cheated on his girlfriend. Yeah, he's got 500
How I Met Your
on his
Mother
own.
writes, a friend of mine was in a committed relationship and his girlfriend cheated on him. The other guy was also in a committed relationship. My friend found the other girlfriend on Facebook and proposed revenge sex. Long story short, the cheaters quickly tired of each other and my friend and the other girl hit it off and are now happily married with a child.
I love it.
Wow. That just goes to show that revenge sex always ends up in a wholesome, pro-social relationship. Go for it.
Mm-hmm. We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week, I go through all of the Senate primaries, which are now beginning in earnest, and try to guess. I reveal my priors by guessing the poly market odds. I had not looked at them, so I wanted to see where I matched up with the wisdom of the crowds. I did pretty well, I shall say. And then on Friday's episode of the show, we are going to be talking about the conservative vibe recession with Carol Markowitz and whether or not the Democrats, who are ascendant in a lot of the polls, have a real money problem because their party is not raising money and their official PACs are not raising money. We bring on Dave Leventhal, the money man, to talk about whether or not that is just hype or a real problem. Jen, what is sizzling on the dish?
So we have a new episode of Congressional Dish Out, and it is about Venezuela because Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he testified to his former committee. He went to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He was on that committee for his entire Senate career. So it was really fascinating to watch a frank discussion by someone in the Trump administration who, whether you like him or not, he is intelligent and he respects Congress. And so it was a real conversation. And I learned, and you will learn if you listen, what the Trump administration is planning, but then from some other sound clips that I found, like, it might not be going so well because one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. So, I just found the whole thing fascinating. And it's just, if you want to get an idea of what they're thinking of doing, that's a good episode to listen to.
Heaton, who wandered into the orphanage this week?
I'm doing a theme week. I'm doing a whole week of programming. I do this once, twice a year where I get interested in some topic and I explore the fuck out of it. And instead of doing standard episode and bonus episode, I do 5 episodes. We're doing 5 episodes this week on the political orphanage. And it is me visiting communes. I've become fascinated by communes. I think they're inherently interesting. They're an alternate, intentional way of living. Kickoff episode, I talked to a new friend from the Austin area, Samwise, and this is sort of the... Like I would assume it's named after. I would assume that they take the name from that. It's kind of your standard granola-esque commune of it grew out of a polycule, multiple hair colors, all of that. Great chat, and actually a fascinating person to talk to. Samwise is on top of their shit, and is going into like how you create an LLC. What the legal and financial elements are in building a commune. The next episode, I go to a, for lack of a better term, techno commune run by the former CTO of Coinbase, who's incorporated blockchain into it to try to create a network of communes. After that, I go to England and go to a more sedate, stodgy commune called Forge Bank, where I hang out with lovely British people that talk to me about the longevity in communes, where that comes from. Then I'm going to do a rerun with Grover Norquist at Burning Man, since I think Burning Man kind of fits in with a commune. And then on Friday, for a bonus episode, I went to a imploded hippie commune in northern Scotland, where a guy burned down the community center where the whole thing fell apart. The original people who started the commune got kicked out of the hotel they were working at because they'd cut down the trees in the backyard to make way for a UFO that didn't come. So they ended up going on the dole in a farmer's area, living out of a caravan. They started having visions, turned into a whole thing. And then it eventually imploded for reasons that I go into in the episode. And a guy burned it down. I went there. I made a hilarious friend. And I ended up spending a significant amount of time naked in a hot tub with geriatric people talking to them about communes. So if you've ever been interested in communes, this is your opportunity to go on a wide-ranging travelogue about how they work and in different and unique places.
I mean, you ending up naked with a bunch of people is exactly what I picture when I picture a commune.
You know, they're pretty different. I got to say, not the kind of thing I would have done at the techno commune. Techno commune, a little bit more... I don't want to say buttoned up, but definitely less nude.
And that will wrap it up for us today. Until next time, friends, for Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young saying, we're not wrong. Amelia's friend is.
Are you a white nationalist?
Only when I use a British accent. I spell white with a U.
White.
Dog and Pony Show audio.